Well, it's been a while since I've actually sat down and talked about something. How is everyone doing today, guys? My name's Tcodes, and yeah, so we are back doing some videos. If you guys haven't checked out my part 1 to Horizon Forbidden West, it's up on the channel, so you can go check that out. Usually I tried to do this, like have a camera with the gameplay, but it wasn't working, so I was like, just put the gameplay footage up and just see what happens. So yeah, sorry about that. This camera and my PS4 doesn't really get along much, so yeah. But still wanted to talk about a few things, like the Legend of Vox Machina, which is this very intriguing show. Okay, I think the first thing I need to get out of the way is I have not seen Critical Role that this show is based on. I know what Critical Role is because my roommate he's seen all the episodes, so he knows what Critical Role is. He knows what this show's like overarching storyline is going to be, and he hasn't spoiled anything much for me. It's pretty much every episode we just sit down. After I watch an episode, he and I just sit down and we talk about it, and then we move on, and then I move on to the next. That's pretty much how I've been going into the show. And the one thing I did know going into the show was that not only was it based on Critical Role, because he told me about this, but it had this pretty epic cast of voice actors. The ones that I knew, at least going into this, was Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, Ashley Johnson, Liam O'Brien, and Matt Mercer. Those were the main ones I did. I didn't know the others, and I am having trouble remember their names now. That's how little I actually know about them. So, yeah, so I knew this was going to be an interesting show because, one, you got these amazing voice actors, so they're going to put their all into this, and you're probably going to have a lot of fun. And judging by this first season, it definitely seems like that because, man, there's a lot that happens in this first season. Although it is intriguing to see this as a fan of just shows rather than a fan of Critical Role. So, like, as an outside viewer, like I said, I know very little of Critical Role. I had pretty much like bare bone minimum knowledge of what this was. I knew going into it was a story about this team named VoxMachina that has this cast of colorful characters that go on adventures and try to save the world from great evils like dragons or witches or vampires and all that, which is pretty much what this first season is. And I'll say it, it was weirdly like Guardians of the Galaxy at first to me. Or, like Guardians of the Galaxy in medieval fantasy times, because they all had this trait. Grog looks like Drax or Kratos, actually. I was waiting for him to just, like, pull out, like, blades of chains and blades with chains on them. That would have been hilarious. But, first I wasn't sure how they were going to work with these characters, because, one, it's a team, so it's like, who's the leader, who's, like, the jokester, it's pretty obvious who's who by the time you get through that first episode. And so it's just like, because it's like Grog's the dumb brute, Scanlan's the wisecracking ladies man, and man. Yeah, I don't. Pike's the healer. Keyleth is their Keyleth's like their mage. Vax and Vex are the hunting duo, and then you got Percy with his innovator. He's with this pepper box, which, technically speaking, yes, that's what it's used, but this sounds so weird to call it a pepper box. Because it's literally it's a 6-barrel revolver. That's pretty much how I looked at that thing. Anyone else? well, Trinket the bear. Very little screen time. I was a little bit disappointed about that. But, yeah, so pretty much the overall season, it has two overarching storylines, I guess is the best way to sum this up, because the first two episodes, which I guess counts, which is a two-part pilot, I feel like is the best way to describe it, is just setting up what Vox Machina is, and their first big win, I guess is the best way to describe it, because the first arc is them having to go on this quest to slay a literal dragon, which based on what we've seen in this show is a really freaking hard task. I mean, this dragon is just laying waste to these villages. And I love the fact that this show is gory as heck. I was getting like Invincible vibes with how some of the people were just vaporized, mangled, just sliced to bits. I mean, by this dragon alone, like, this was the first two episodes that I'm talking about. I'm not even going into the main beef of the season. But yeah, I mean, just this dragon is blue dragon, as my roommate told me. It's a storm, it conjures lightning, and so it's pretty hard to kill. I mean, especially for this team, they go at first, they're just mercenaries pretty much. I mean, they go around, they just do small jobs for thieves and criminals, but they usually don't get much out of it, especially when they get into fights like the one at the tavern at the beginning of the show, and it just seems like they're going nowhere. And even Ashley Johnson voices Pike. She is Pike's this gnome. She's not the only one. Scanlan is also a gnome. Laura Bailey plays Vex, and Liam O'Ryan plays Vax. I got those names mixed up a few times, and that's a joke that they actually have in the show as well. Those two, they're elves, I believe. Half human, half elves. I think that's what my roommate told me. I'm not 100% certain. Grog's this Goliath brute. Keyleth is this mage, and then Percy is a human, which guess that makes sense. I mean, he's got the white hair, though. I mean, I don't know. Actually, it's weird, because it's like you give him a gigantic sword, you can technically call him Dante or forgetting the other dude's name, but from Devil May Cry. Like, that could have been an interesting idea. Just have him be like a Devil May Cry character. But yeah, no, they're a lot of fun. The team, again, it's like at first I wasn't sure how much story we're gonna get with this team, because my roommate said like this show was like for the people that have watched Critical Role more, and out of the gate that kind of is what it feels like, because you're just thrown in, really. I mean, it's like if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but you didn't see like Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. Like, you were just thrown in with this team, and you have to really like pick up on what they're like, what's their motives, what are their like abilities and all that, strengths, weaknesses, all. I guess it makes sense. I mean, because they do set up the origins of some of these characters throughout the season, which is cool. I do like that, because it allows the mystery of the characters and like the lack of knowledge of characters to work to the show's advantage, because it's like, oh, you don't know much about this character? Well, you'll learn about him as the season goes on. Or you don't know about these two characters? Well, we'll let you know because of this threat that they're going up against. So that's cool. I like that. And it's really intriguing to watch this show because of that. But I also do the flow of the season is weird because of the fact that it feels like, yeah, the first two episodes are like this pilot that focus on this one storyline, and then the rest of the season is not a completely different storyline, because there is like a connection, a very small connection between the first arc and the second arc, But it's like, the beef of the season is that second arc, which is a really good arc. Like, my god, these were very intense episodes, very epic, very funny too. Like, each of these episodes they don't have a lot of crazy, like, gut-busting jokes in my opinion, but there are a few. Like, there's definitely some that are purposely there, although I feel like there's some that was unintentionally there. Like, it's odd. It's really odd, but yeah, so what else? I mean, well, I guess I should really just talk about the arcs between the two. I was already talked about the dragon for the first arc, which is that's their first big win. They fight this dragon. Part one is them. They go find this dragon. They get their butts kicked. They nearly die. So they're like, you know what? It's not worth the reward. It's not worth the whatever the heck the sovereign of this kingdom is offering us. We're just gonna leave. But then they go back to the village that they started off at, and they're all like, the village has been leveled. It's gone. All the people are dead. And then, of course, they're like, well, shoot, we gotta avenge these people. We gotta actually kill this freaking dragon. And that was the other thing I liked how these people, like, this team has compassion for their people. They aren't fully out for themselves. Like, they kind of set them up as that because, they're at the beginning, they're at the tavern, they're drunk. That's like, Lord Vex is like, another one to Vox Machina, the greatest band of heroes in the world. It's like, okay, yeah, that's what you guys do. And then next thing you know, it's like, Vex, I'm already still getting them mixed up. Vax, Liam O'Brien's character, starts a fight with this assassin by literally saying, like, lend me a hand, you're gonna lend me a hand, and then Grog comes in and just chops his hand off, and then that's how the full fight starts. So it's like, even, like, Ashley Johnson's Pike points out the flaws that these people have. It's like, Vex and Vax are out for themselves. Scanlan wants to... Or no, Keyleth talks about that. Keyleth talks about how Vex and Vax are out for themselves. Grog basically just wants to murder everybody. Scanlan wants to get in bed with all the ladies of the... in Tal'Dorei, I think. So it's just like... They pretty much admit... Yeah, they're not the best heroes, and they're definitely not heroes or good people. They're somewhat criminals. But I do like that it doesn't fully define them, because before they go and fight the dragon the first time, they're at this village that later is destroyed, but they're interacting with the people. I mean, obviously there's a few things where it's like talking to the people, trying to figure out what the heck this thing is, but there's also nice little moments, like trying to... Like, probably the best moment was when Vax was showing off this coin trick to this kid, because, Vax is playing with the coin, the kid looks at him, and he thinks it's kind of like a magic trick, but Vax shows him that it's really just, it's like the movement of the hand, it's just like, it's how you work with it, and then he gives him the coin, which is nice. It's a nice little moment showing that they're not completely jerks, they're not selfish, but... When he comes back, the kid's dead, and he's got the coin, and it's bloodied up, and it's just like... It's like, you don't need much outside of that. You know what they have to do, and that's exactly what happens at the end of the first episode. They're like, we gotta go fight this, we gotta go fight it again. We have to at least try to avenge these people. If that means we're all gonna die, then so be it. And the second episode, they find out who the dragon... Like, they find the dragon again. Interesting twists with who the actual dragon is, which was intriguing because, one, I love the voice... David Tennant, love the voice actor. I guess if you're wondering about this show overall, I'm gonna probably talk a few things about spoilers, so, David Tennant's the dragon. Sorry about that, people, but it's pretty intriguing to watch him as the dragon. No, he's great. it's David Tennant, and I just wish they had more of him. I mean, it's like you killed the dragon off in the second episode of a 12-episode season. What the freaking heck? But it's the pilots. So it's just setting up their first big win. They do it in a pretty funny way. I mean, it's like they take what they would possibly see as weaknesses and use them as strengths. I mean, literally, it's like, we're VoxMachina. We effed up. It's like, so what do they do to destroy the dragon? They just F crap up. So, makes sense. I mean, but that's pretty much the first arc, just setting up the team, setting up what this world is. I mean, there really isn't much of the world outside of like Tal'Dorei and like this kind of like a few nods to a few things, but it's pretty much, just setting up this team, setting up their first big win. The second arc, on the other hand, by God, it's freaking epic. I mean, my roommate, my roommate and I, we were talking about these episodes, and he just clearly is one of the best arcs of the first campaign for Vox Machina. He pretty much summed up the Briarwood story arc, the White Stones. It's just, God, it is really, really good. Granted, I was a bit taken aback by how this felt like a weird... I think it would have been interesting if the first arc with the dragon was like a little movie. Like, what if that was like a movie that set up the team, set up like what they were like, helping them realize that they can actually be heroes, and the big climax is them taking out the dragon and then being praised and having this, and then their first season is this Briarwood story arc. I felt like that could have worked better, but regardless of that transition, it's still freaking good. One is you have Matt Mercer as Silas Briarwood, the vampire, and then you have, I forget what her name is in the show, but Grey Griffin is Lady Briarwood, and she is freaking dripping with the Zulu as a necromancer. It's like, basically, it's like, what would happen if you took Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, grew her up as a woman, and instead of having her with the fire bending and lightning bending, she's a necromancer? That pretty much is what this feels like, because you just see Azula here and there, which is fantastic. It's so creepy. She's diabolical. She could be insane. She could be so scary too. Just with a simple look, you just look at her and you're just like, ugh. But also at the same time, you're like, I hate you. It's like, there's this one scene, I think a lot of people would know what scene I'm talking about, where it's just dark as heck. Just I guess, again, let's talk about spoilers real quick. It's when Vox Machina gets the White Stone and they see the Sun Tree, and you see these people that were introduced early in the episode, and it's like, oh, the Briarwoods brought them to the castle because they wanted to give them a feast, they wanted to also give them offerings, like these new attires for them to wear. And it's like, you're wondering, like, okay, how can this gonna go in? End of the episode, they're all hung up dressed as the members of Vox Machina, which is just, oh my God. It is jarring to look at, and that's where the end of that episode, and it's really just, not only does it show what the Briarwoods are really capable of, up to that point we knew what they were capable of. One's a vampire and the other a necromancer, so it's like, that's messed up. But this really shows how messed up they are. And just, but there's so many good things about this. I love how you do get the development of these characters as this goes. The main development is of Percy, because Whitestone is his home, and the Briarwoods are the reason why he fled, because the Briarwoods came in, they took over Whitestone, they nearly killed him and his sister. They murdered his family, so he fled because he had no other choice. And so he's been plotting his revenge ever since, basically, and now he's back to get his revenge on the Briar Woods, and it's just, God, it's so, his arc alone just really was insane, and I really you feel for this guy, because he is, of the group, he's the most, like, calm. He tries to be the most calm, he tries to be the most, like, stoic, royal, like, he tries to really be the most civilized of the group. So then the second the Briarwoods are introduced, it nearly completely falls apart for him, because all he wants is to kill the Briarwoods. Like, the first, like, in the third episode, when the Briarwoods show up, he is just, it is so uncomfortable, and it's so, I mean, and it's to watch him, because you're just worried if he's gonna snap, and when he snaps, he might do something that could possibly make things worse. And a few times that nearly happens, because he has this demon that's possessed him, and it's like he has a hit list, basically, and it's like he has to kill 6 people on his gun, which is so crazy to think about just looking at the gun. And I love how the gun has the names literally inscribed, but at first it looks like they have them inscribed. It's like the 5 people I need to kill, but there's 6 barrels, so who's number 6 for? But as the season goes on, you realize it's not inscribed, it's burned in by this demon. It's like, it changes when, like, number 6, like, there's a great twist in this, in my opinion, that, I guess if you haven't seen Critical Role, you know what the twist is, but if you haven't seen Critical Role, it's a fun twist where you get the reveal by the gun. It's because they're going through this room. They have a few new members of their party, and they're trying to catch up to the Briarwoods to prevent this great dark being from being unleashed by this ritual at this temple under the city on the solstice, because how freaking more realistically cliche could you get? But they're going through this one room, and they're like, wait, something's not right. And then Percy just looks down at his gun, and all of a sudden a new name appears on the gun, and all of a sudden you realize that person is betraying them. And it's like such a clever way to, like, do a reveal, because it's like, that's the thing, it's like the gun literally tells him who he wants to kill, or who he needs to kill, who he has to kill, basically. It's like who this demon wants to kill. It's just so freaking good, and I love, like, it's so good. It's so good. I really enjoyed this show, despite the fact that I never actually watched Critical Role. I was very intrigued by this. It makes me want to actually go watch Critical Role and be like, what are some of the pieces here that I didn't pick up on? What are some of the things that may have been different in the campaign? Because that's another thing my roommate and I were talking about. There was a lot of different things that have been altered so it could flow better with the show. Like, for example, there's a sequence where Scanlan, who has to make a distraction, and he goes into this one house and basically causes a distraction because he drinks these potions. One makes him small, one allows him to breathe fire, the other allows him to teleport, but then he casts this spell that turns him into Triceratops, which is insanely funny and insanely cool. And it all ends with him battling the one general dude on top of the roof, and he nails him with the bolt of lightning that came out of his little Scanlan, I think that's the best way to call it. But it is insanely epic. But my roommate, what my roommate and I were talking about, he's like, yeah, it's cool, but that's not exactly how it went in the Critical Role campaign. So apparently it's like the Triceratops and that whole sequence pretty much happened. The only difference being he turned into the Triceratops right out of the gate. He was able to breathe fire, and he got himself up to the roof as a Triceratops still. It's like that was the only difference. But I feel like this one made more sense, because up to this point, you're looking at Scanlan, you're like, oh, he's the he can't really do much. He's a bard, but he's not a bard trained by Rain Whispers of Owl House, so how good can he be? But it's like, so he needed that, like, he really needed, like, that moment of triumph and, like, that moment of, like, at the end, like, if you had him as, like, the Triceratops breathing fire right out of the gate, probably would have been like, whoa, that's crazy epic and crazy dumb luck. But I liked how it was building up to his moment, because it's like, he's going in and he's like, he has no idea what he's doing. He's got this book with the spell and he's got these 3 potions that he doesn't know what they do. So it's like, he's really just going off of what he's got, and he's getting lucky a few times, but he is able to overcome, like, a few of the flaws that he has, and he's able to admit some of the things that he has hid. Like, he wears a mask, basically, and he just overcomes that, and he beats this guy, and he gets that moment of triumph, and it's so cool. And there's a few moments like that, like, and there's also another thing, I really like the relationships that form with these characters, and it's not, I mean, there are a few moments where they're talking about it, but I do like how you can just tell by the way they look at each other, the way you feel the scene. Like, something as simple as one character helping another character up, and then the way they look at each other, and it's like, you feel that you feel that connection between the two, and you're like, cool. I mean, and then of course, there's other moments where they pretty much just flat out say it. Like, I love this one moment where they're at Whitestone, and the Briarwoods send zombies after them, and it's like they're in the middle of this fight, and it seems like they're gonna die, and one just looks to the other and is like, you know, I'm deeply in love with you, right? And the other's just like, oh, now? Like, right now? Like, what? It's so funny, I love it. I mean, at the same time, it's like, oh, just admitted their feelings to them, but they're in the middle of a battlefield of zombies, why? But there's also some epic moments as well with the characters, like Percy, like the way he overcomes his demons at the end and is able to really let go of the mistakes that he made in the past. There's Pike, who, this was a weird part, and the reason why this felt weird, because when they're going to Whitestone, Pike goes off on her own. She has to restore the Everlight because she lost her connection to it, because after their first fight with the Briarwoods, her sigil was destroyed. I think it was a sigil. It was destroyed, and she lost her connection, so she couldn't do much, and so she has to go to a temple to restore the Everlight, for her connection to it. And so there's a few episodes where, while the Vox Machina is heading to Whitestone, or in Whitestone, you have Pike at the temple doing her thing, and it's cool because, I mean, it's nice, but at the same time, it's weird to have her away from the group. That kind of felt like out of nowhere a bit. Again, talked to my roommate about that. The reason why was because Ashley Johnson was working on Blind Spot at the time, and so there were times where she couldn't be there with the rest of the team as they were working on this campaign, so there were times, so she had to go off on her own for a bit to work around that, and so it still leads to a great story arc for Pike, and it leads to a freaking epic entrance and like an ex machina moment for her. It's so cool when she comes back, or technically speaking comes back, and just the way it feels epic, and the way she comes in, and it's so much fun to watch this show and see these characters. Like, I mean, some of them don't get too big of a story arc like Vex and Vax. They mainly are just solid characters, but yeah, you got Grog's another one who's mainly just like there to like be like get hit. He gets a few moments, like when he gets his rematch fight with Silas, he has this really clever idea, because Silas has the ability to mind control people, but the thing is their eyes have to be open, so Grog's literally fighting him with his eyes closed, and he's just flailing the axe around, and he's like, if I can't see what I'm hitting, neither can you. So it's like, it's funny because, yeah, it's like if Grog doesn't know what he's swinging at or where he's swinging, then neither would Silas. So it's like, it's cool to see him actually get a few hits on Silas because of that idea. Even Keyleth gets a pretty epic moment, a few epic moments actually, where she is able to overcome her fears of not being able to be a full power mage and is able to conjure, like, the way Silas is taken out in this is so epically gruesome and badass at the same time. It's just, oh, it's so cool how he goes out. And then Lady Briarwood, the way she goes out is freaking messed up too, but it's not as insanely cool as Silas, in my opinion, because Silas is a vampire. You gotta do a few things to take out a vampire, but what else I want to talk about? I mean, there's even some side characters that work too, like Percy's sister, who is introduced. She's pretty cool, although there is a thing that happens to her that you are like, wait, so has that happened? Has that been with her the whole time, or has she been like slowly? Has it been like there, but then back there, like, or you know what I mean if you've seen the show. But no, I mean, it's really cool to see a few of the side characters work, although some of them don't last long, but there's a few. Also, I do gotta talk about some of the homages to other things. Like, I talked about how Lady Briarwood being voiced by Grey Griffin, that's like Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's a few other things, like the dragon that's in this, it looks like Dragon Prince because it's 3D. It's like the way it moves, the way it looks, it's like that's Dragon Prince. It's like, what? It's so weird to see that flying around, and it's a 3D dragon flying around with these 2D characters, and it's like, that shouldn't fit, but okay. And then there's another, when they're in Whitestone, there's these giants that walk around, and although they don't look completely like him, did anyone else get Attack on Titan vibes when those giants were walking around? Like, seriously, the way they looked, the way they were moving, the way they literally reach down and actually eat people, it's like, but yeah, no, it is an epic story, at least for the first season. I mean, the way they end this first season too on this like cliffhanger is like, oh, it's going to get even crazier, which I mean, my roommate and I, we talked about it. It's like, yeah, it gets crazier from here. But I think what really drives home the Briarwood story arc is not only do you have the backstory of Percy, not only do you have these pretty epic villains, but just the overall like feel and the stakes really drove it, because you see what Whitestone has become. You see the threats they're going up against. You see the odds that they're against. And it's like, it really feels like anything can really happen, because technically speaking, in a D&D campaign, anything can really happen. It's like, you think, oh, they're gonna win, but it's like, oh, this could I'll throw a wrench in the thing. It's like, that's kind of what happens a few times. Like, they get a win, but then something like comes in to make it even worse, or like turn the tides, and it's like, I don't know if they can overcome that, but luckily they do, because if they don't overcome it, then the campaign ends, and it's like, well, there goes Vox Machina, on to the next campaign, folks. And yeah, because of the way these characters are, it's hard to really have a favorite. Like, at first, when I watched the first 3 episodes, I was like, Percy probably is my favorite. But then as the show went on, I'm like, oh, Percy, great character, but so is Vax, so is Vex, so is Scanlan, so is Pike, so is Grog, so is Keyleth. They're all great characters. Like, and it's so cool to see how, like, unique they are, yet you see the similarities that they share with each other. But it's like, but also they have their their own, sometimes literally demons to overcome. And it's like, so when they overcome it, it is so cool for them to have that moment. Yeah. let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Honestly, it's not really, I mean, not too much else to talk about. I mean, really, my only problem is the fact that, yeah, for as someone who hasn't seen Critical Role, there are a few moments where I'm like, okay, I feel like if I watch Critical Role, I would get this. If I watch Critical Role, I would understand this. And like I said, because you feel like you're thrown right in, you kind of don't fully know all these characters yet, but you pick up on what they are like as the season goes on, and by the end of the first season, you're like, I really do know this team pretty well. I mean, I know what Scanlan's like. I know what Pike's like. I know what she's been through. I know what Vax and Vex. I don't know much about them, but I do know what they're like and what they've been through. Grog has had these moments, and he's funny, and so, yeah, no, it's great. It's fun, and I am excited to see where it goes from here. It's really, yeah, I mean, it's hard to really say anything bad about the show, in my opinion. I mean, probably the other thing is like the animation here and there, but I heard this whole thing was on a Kickstarter. This was on a Kickstarter, so I get that the budget kind of makes a few scenes look a little weird, but it's still epic set pieces, like when they're at this temple, or like when they're at this village, this city, this town fighting, or when they're at this cave and they're battling something. It's like, it doesn't always look insanely incredible, but you do like the concepts. You like what it feels like. It feels cool to watch. So, yeah, man, there's really not much to hate about the show, is there? Yeah, there really isn't. Dang. Okay. But yeah, so I guess if you're able to check out Vox Machina, go check it out. I know there are clips on YouTube you can check out too. So if you're not sure if Vox Machina is like a show you might watch, give it a chance. Like if you're not fully into it through the first few episodes, just stick with it, because by the end you may not get every single loose end tied in, because I mean, it makes sense, because you still got more of a show to go from here, but it feels like you've been on a journey with a team that you wanted to follow, and they do a lot of good while also doing a few what the heck was that things. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much about it. So hoping you guys enjoyed that review of the first season of Vox Machina. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. And if you want to subscribe. You don't have to, but I'm just saying. So, all right. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.